There are many different styles of sleeves. Sleeves are often the focal point of the garment. The finishes of the sleeve are what we are going to discuss today. A sleeve very often needs some kind of an opening if your sleeve has a tight-fitting finish. The first opening we're going to discuss is the spaced opening. When the cuff is open, there is a finished space between the edges of the cuff. When closed, the finish forms a pleat. Another opening is the slashed opening. This slash requires a finish, and the finish is put on as a piping. This piping may be cut on the straight grain or on the bias grain. The last finish we're going to discuss, or actually opening finish, is the placket. The placket is used in shirt sleeves or shirt style sleeves. This is a sportswear type finish. Let's start with the spaced opening. Your pattern should have a slash in the area of the back of the sleeve, 2 slashes actually, approximately 3/8 to 1/2 an inch deep. We turn under the seam allowance of this opening, which may be as much as 1 3/4 inches to 2 1/2 to 2 inches long. We turn under the raw edge once and a second time. We don't need to baste or even pin. Just hold it in place and stitch it. We will edge stitch it. For a couture finish, you will find that this little space is finished with a hand stitch. With the space complete, we could now close the sleeve, the seam of the sleeve, and apply a cuff. The slashed finish is applied with a strip of fabric. The strip is long enough to follow the opening, which is approximately 2 1/2 to 3 inches long. The strip is finished 1 1/4 inches. The choice of bias cutting or straight cutting the strip is up to the manufacturer. To the right side of the garment, right sides together, we place the strip. Starting at the edge, we place the strip so that the whole thing involves no more than tops 1/4 of an inch. We'll now stitch it. This type of opening cannot be basted. It really doesn't need it or warrant it. We'll start using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on the strip itself. And as you see, the garment is placed so that the 1/4 of an inch at the base of the slash, there is practically no fabric. Care must be taken that the needle will just stop at that point. We keep the needle down, we raise the press-a-foot, we slide the rest of the garment down, and as you see, the fabric that we're using for piping is still straight. Replace the garment so that it comes from that 1/4 of an inch space at the top to nothing at the bottom. And we continue stitching. At all times, we maintain a 1/4 inch seam allowance. We right off this garment and we can cut off the remainder of the tape. We're now ready to finish. Bend the seam allowance into the strip of fabric. Turn under the raw edge approximately 1/4 of an inch. Creasing is sufficient. If you're going to finish this strip by hand, just bring that to touch the last row of stitching you did. If you plan to finish this by sewing machine, you place your pins further back on the right side, taking care to extend that little seam allowance beyond the stitching line. We're now going to stitch this to finish it. The stitch we're going to use is the crack stitch. We're going to stitch right next to your seam. Remove the pins as you stitch. the stitching on the wrong side, the stitching on the right side. In order to hold the placket or strip in place, we're going to put in a little bit of holding stitch. We fold both edges of the fabric together and we stitch from the edge to the top of the placket. And that will hold the placket in place. A placket that has been finished with a hand stitch looks like this. The outside looks no different from the inside. The placket that has been finished with a crack stitch looks like this. The shirt placket found on tailored shirts and sportswear garment require two different shapes for your placket: the top placket and the under placket. The top placket is pinned with the right side of the placket down to the wrong side of the sleeve. The under placket is pinned to the right side with the right sides together. We'll stitch these now using 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. We stitch the placket from one end to the other, tack it, and clip off your threads. Turn your sleeve over and stitch the other half. The next step is finishing the under placket. We turn under the raw edge 1/4 of an inch. You turn your placket to the right side of the garment. It may be easier for you just to fold the other half of the sleeve up and out of the way. We turn the edge of the placket under and just cover your stitching line. pin this in place, covering the stitching line, and we will stitch this into place. You will notice that I am not basting. This garment, this type of placket, does not really require basting at this point. We stitch to the end and raise up the press-a-foot. Remove the stitching, the thread, and we're ready to turn the top placket to the right side. Place the under placket down and the over placket over in this direction. Now what we have seeing, if we just place it flat in this manner, is the under placket. What we really want to do is cover it entirely with the over placket. So using an invisible line, which gives you a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance away from this raw edge at the top or point of the placket, turn that edge under all the way down. And pin it to the other half of the shirt. Turn under the raw edge of the placket and pin this right along that edge, making sure when you pin it that you're not pinning to the under placket at all. We come to the top of the point and we turn under our points. You must maintain the point. At the same time, the point should come out in the center of the placket. It's a little tricky, and I'll show you what it looks like in a second. That point mustn't stick out. We're all pinned. We now have to find a stop point on the placket. That is the point where the under placket and the over placket meet on the wrong side. Approximately 1/4 of an inch down from that, we will stick a pin to guide ourselves when we start basting, because we're going to have to stitch right across at that point. And we're going to baste now. This is one point where I find basting will help you. Baste the edge along the edge of the placket. We're now ready to top stitch the placket in place. With an edge stitch, stitch down along the edge of the placket and carefully turn it at the corners. One cannot sew too quickly because one has to keep turning corners. When you reach the point where you must stitch across to hold the placket in place, we stitch right across, and you may tack it. Remove the placket from the needle. You remove your basting. And your shirt placket is complete.